All right. Well, welcome back to A Day in the Life of the Asset Manager featuring an underwriter and/or in investor relations. We're not really sure anymore, but we're doing it, guys. So yeah, good to be here with you guys. Cindy's back in full form, as you can see, and so we have some really exciting stuff to talk to you about today. So we're just going to jump right in.
Well, first, I want to talk about our schedule with the day in a life. We have been talking about it as a team, and I think that what we're going to do, instead of doing it every Monday, I think we're going to do it the first Monday of every month, and we'll block out an hour. And that way, you'll be able to a little bit more efficiently use your time. You'll know that it's going to happen on the first Monday of every month, and we'll block out an hour, and we'll have more information that we'll give you that we'll be able to go over and maybe even answer questions that you have. So, and we're going to be pushing that out through our website. So you will be getting a notice. So just know that you heard it here first, but we're going to be pushing that out so that people will be able to really calendar it and be able to join. And then that might give you a little bit more time if you have questions coming up. Do know that if you have something that comes up between the calls, you can reach out to me, Tyler, or Laura directly. Just jump on our website and calendar an appointment, or you can give us a call. We're here to help you. We want you to be successful in this journey. And right now, we're just kind of in that, we're in the acquisition phase. I was actually on a podcast this morning with Momentum Multifamily. They are in Fort Worth. And so we were talking a little bit about how we're doing asset management and what it takes to be an asset manager. And in that call, I did let them know that we did teach asset management. It's a 12-week course, and we did it in 2024. We're not teaching it in 2025 because High Caliber, is in the acquisition phase, but we will be teaching it in 2026. So we're letting people kind of get a heads up on that because it is a 12-week course. We meet once a week as a Zoom class. There is homework that is done. It does get graded and sent back to you. We also have an instructor hour. So that is where you can work on your homework. If you have questions or you're stuck on something, you can just jump on the instructor hour and kind of get some individual tutoring if you need it. Or if that's where we also tell people if you're in the middle of a deal or if you have questions, this is a good place to go. During the class, we have taught it many, many times. There's really not a whole lot of time for questions. It's mostly giving you information. Then you do your homework. It is recorded, so you can, go back if you need to. But that is a 12-week course. And so we're going to start talking about that a little bit just so people can get it on their calendar. Probably the first one will be in February of 2026. We don't do January because January is crazy. It's just a crazy month. It's a crazy for us because everyone, we have all these properties that we have to close out. And so we're getting, the debt service and just trying to get all of that to the CPA so that he can then in turn prepare the returns. So it's a little bit crazy. And I just find that a lot of people it's kind of crazy for them also in January. So we will start in February. So we'll start pushing that out so you can take a look at it. It'll list what our curriculum is. You can look at that. One of the things that we do is we have people that have taken the class and then they end up investing in our properties. And so we put them on the asset management team. Now, this is completely self-serving on my part because that means I'm working with someone that knows what information I'm looking for and how I like it presented. So it's very self-serving. I'll be the first to admit it, but it's really good because if you invest in a property, it does give you an opportunity to be on the asset management team to kind of see what goes on behind the curtains before you take on asset managing yourself. And we have had a lot of people tell us that it's a very eye-opening to be on the asset management team because you really do understand. And then also it just kind of puts them ahead of the curve. So when they do have their property, they can take on the asset management. I saw in the chat, there is a fee for it. I I'm not sure what that fee is. I'm so sorry. I know what we charged for it in 2024, and I don't know if it's going to be the same or not. I don't have the answer to that, but start collecting your pennies. Let's just put it that way. It won't be outrageous. I promise you, it won't be like outrageous, but it does help us, cover our time and what we do. And it really is informative. You will come away with every template that you need. We give away a lot of templates in this day in a life, but there are some we don't give away because they're proprietary. They are ones that we actually pay for. We pay the person that did them, and when we teach the class, we buy it on your behalf. And so we pay for that, and then we give it to you so that you can use it on your property. So there is a fee for that, but I don't know what that's going to be, but we'll try and get that nailed down in the next couple of months so that people will have an opportunity to know it's coming and start scheduling for it. So. And today we're going to talk about distributions because that's what we're doing today in the life of the asset manager. We are working on distributions. And so what does that look like? Well, we calculate them quarterly. So because we're in April, we have just finished the first quarter. So we finished January, February, March, and we use the scorecard. Laura, can you pull up the scorecard and just scroll down so that it doesn't have the name of the property?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to look at a scorecard and we're going to show you how we come up with this. And so Laura's going to share his screen so you'll be able to see it. You won't know what property it is, but just to kind of give you an idea of what we are looking at when we are calculating what are we going to pay to the investors.
Can I just throw my 2 cents in there?
Yes, please.
We get to do distributions either monthly or quarterly. We really try to move more into the quarterly side just because it is very labor intensive and it all kind of shakes out to be the same for the investor. But it is one of the absolute best times of the year when we get to cut checks for all of our investors and say, hey guys, you remember like years ago or last year or whatever it was when we said we think that this property can do X, Y, and Z. Well, it did more than that. And so we're able to give you even more money than we talked about initially. And that is one of my favorite times of year because we're fulfilling our promise to our investors that we are going to get them their money back and that it's going to be better than what we thought. Right? We try to under promise, over deliver. And this is our moment to do that. So everybody should always be excited about distributions because that means your property is functioning, it's making money, and it's doing exactly what you think it's going to do.
And it is the same number actually. When we calculate it quarterly, so that's what we're going to look at today is the calculation. And then we pay distributions. We prefer to pay them quarterly. It's just easier for us because it's a one and done. We've paid it out. But we do have some of the properties that are set up monthly. So what we'll do is we'll take that quarterly distribution, divide it by 3, and then they're going to get a check every month. They'll get the check in April, May, June, but it's actually for January, February, March. But it's not. January does not equal April. I just want to be really clear on that. It is a total of what the quarter is, and we divide it by 3. And that's another reason there are some people that like to calculate it monthly, but we don't like to do that. It ends up that, some months might have more than another. So we just calculate it on the quarter. Now this scorecard, this is I can't think of it. Proprietary. Yes. Thank you. For just a second, it left my brain. So this is part of what we teach in the class. And perhaps one day we'll do it, especially when we're in our 1-hour call. This would be a great one to take a whole hour and go through it because it is very labor intensive. Lorik is the one that enters all of this information in, but it tells us exactly what's going on at the property because numbers don't lie. I mean, you can say, we're doing this, we're doing that, but really everyone says, show me the money. That's really what they want. They want to see a return on their investment. And so one of the things that we use the scorecard for is it tells us, like if you look at line 21, that tells us the average market rent. So you can look at it and you can see, are we trending up? Are we trending down? Are we staying the same? Now, this property, if you look at the very top of the scorecard, it says year 5. So this is the 5th year of having this property. So we're super happy. If we were to go back to year 1, I don't even know what the rents are. I mean, this was like 5 years ago, but we have definitely trended up. So we're able to look at that. We're able to see what is the economic vacancy. So how many vacants do we have? And you can see that this property is doing really, really well. Not only are we at the top of the market rent on this, we are also, we really stay really high in the vacancies. This particular complex has achieved what we look for in complex to community. We've talked about that in the past, how when we buy a property, it's usually because the owner is tired of dealing with it or he is self-managing it. There's a reason why they're selling it. And usually that interprets to the fact that it is no longer a priority to them and they're doing just basically what they need to do to sell it. So it really is a complex, and our purpose is to turn it into a community. And we have found great success in doing this across our whole portfolio. And it doesn't matter who the property manager is. We, as the asset managers, implement from complex to community. And that's what we teach in our asset management class, is how to do that. And this property has really achieved that. And what happens when you go from a complex to a community is people love where they live. They know who their neighbors are, and we have really strong referrals. People want their friends to come live there. A lot of people are coming to the realization that they may not buy a home, that they may live in an apartment. And so what we do is we strive really hard to provide a beautiful, safe place for them to live, because everyone deserves that. It doesn't matter what your income level is, or if it's a C-class property or a B-class property. We still want the landscaping done. We still want everything fixed in the unit. We want to have good lighting. We want people to feel safe there. And then we have community events where they feel like a part of the community. They are part of the family that lives there. So this is what we're doing at this complex. And this particular one has really achieved that. It's taken us a little while to get that implemented. But one thing I noticed was at Thanksgiving, when I was talking with the on-site and what she had planned for the community activity, she was telling me that she had talked to a lot of the residents and they were not traveling for Thanksgiving, that they were going to be there and they did not have family. And she wanted to do a Friendsgiving. And I said, if your residents, they send out a poll, if they want to do that, we will provide like a turkey and a ham and all the paper products. And then maybe we can potluck the difference. And so she did. And so she had a Friendsgiving and it was very successful. So that made me happy because I'm thinking, okay, these are people, they're not traveling and they're like, you know what? I am happy to have dinner with my neighbor. Now, there is one man, I have to tell you, in this complex who does not like anyone in the complex, no one. And he complains about his neighbor all the time to the on-site. And so she, was talking with them when it was time to renew. And she's like, are you sure you want to renew? Like, it's okay. I mean, honestly, because we don't want someone living there that's unhappy. And he's like, oh no, I'm renewing. I'm going to stay. And it was right before the Friendsgiving. And she said that he went to the dinner, made a plate, and then left. But he still attended. I mean, it was so funny because he wasn't going to sit down and eat with everyone, but he still attended. So even then, he didn't move out. And so he just, did his renewal. So, so I feel like this particular complex is doing really well. We definitely have way overhit our benchmarks on this. But what I want to show you is we do it by the quarter. So you can see January, February, March. And this is actually because we bought this property in March of 2021. We do it by the calendar year. So that first year, we actually hit our 7% pref in 9 months. Now, if we hadn't have hit the pref in 9 months, maybe we wouldn't have, maybe we would have done it as a fiscal year instead of a calendar year. But because we hit the pref, we went ahead and moved it over to the calendar year. So when we're looking at this, we can see what we did in January, February, and March. And we can see our rental operating income. And we can see that in January, it was 79, 80 in February, and then in March was 77. So when we go through this scorecard, when we have questions, we will denote that on the scorecard because we don't want to have to go over and over again. So you can see where Lorik has put his notes in. And then when we ask the question from the property manager, we put the answer in. So that, because, you know, we have lots of people looking at the scorecard, and that just saves us from having to repeat ourselves multiple times. Then we have our utility reimbursement and our other income. And so that gives us our EGI. So that's our economic gross income. So you can see that the property is performing really well. It's 80 units. And so we're very pleased with where we're at. Where we, you know, thought we might be, we're definitely hitting those marks. So then we list out our expenses. And we have our percentages of what we look at, you know, when we're looking at payroll and our management expense. We do have our asset management up in the expenses. And this is something that when you buy a property, you'll have to talk with your GP group. Some GPs do not put asset management fee up in the expenses, but we do because it really is a cost of running the property. It is required for it to function and move forward. We pay the PM, the property management, their fee, and we pay the asset management, their fee. Now, this particular property, this was 5 years ago, and so we only did a 1% asset management fee. Today, asset management fee is usually between 2 and 3%. Just depends on how big a property it is. How are we looking? You know, do we have multiple people on payroll? One of the things that we try to do as the asset manager is take things off of the plate of the property manager. So, for example, we had a property where we were going to buy a playground. Well, we didn't want the leasing agent, because that's a national project. Like there's national playground companies, you have to get it shipped in, you have to have certain requirements of, the leveling of the ground. And we didn't want the on-site to have to spend their time doing that. So we took that off of their plate and we did it as an asset management team. We had someone that took the lead on that. And so they got all the price comparisons, looked at, what did the playground look like? What did it offer? How much did it cost? What are we getting? We don't always go with the cheapest. We just look for what's the best bang for our buck, basically. But they did all of that because I cannot lease a unit. Like, I am not trained. I am not the person to be leasing. And so I would rather have our leasing agent work on that. So those are the things that we kind of look at with the asset management team. So you can see that's why we have asset management up, like I said, in the expenses. And then we have, the different ones. And you guys, when you're doing your underwriting or you're reviewing the underwriting, you want to look at that. And those are the controllable expenses. Those are the things that we have control over. Then we list the insurance and taxes, which we have no control over. That comes out with our debt service. And then we look and see, we get our total expenses, and then we see what is the ratio between the income and the expenses. This is before debt service. So these are things that, we have put into place or we have authorized as the asset managers. And so we just look at that. You definitely would like to be under 50%. We've had this property for quite a while, so we are blessed that it does run anywhere between 45 and 50. Rarely does it ever go over 50. But properties that we've bought more recently, we really are within that 48 to 51, sometimes 52, and then we start squawking because we wanted to keep it below the 50. Then we have our reserve placement. Oh, let me just talk about line 59, which is, that's the NOI. And then if you look at column L and line 60, That 45,000, that is our benchmark. That's what we want to hit. That is when we know that we're on track to hit our pref with our investors. So when you look at it, you can see that in January, we were over that because we hit 50. And then in February, we were over it because we hit 48. But in March, we were shy because our 59.9 or 45.9 is our benchmark, and we only hit 44.7. This is another reason why we calculate it quarterly, because if we were doing it every month, we would have sent out January and February, and then what would we do in March? We can't ask them to send their money back. So that's why we pay out quarterly. But we go through this process of looking at it and determining what we're going to send. So that's our benchmark, and that we like to have that set up for every property. So we know how much do we need to hit every month. We usually have a break even, meaning that our expenses are all paid. And then we also have our benchmark of what we need to hit our pref. Then we have reserve replacement. And this is basically a wash. You can see that every month it's 1,666. And then on one month it's 667. And what happens is at the end of the quarter, we're going to submit to the bank because the bank withholds this as part of our debt service. So every month when we pay, the debt service is going to take our insurance, it's going to take our taxes, it's going to have the reserves and the actual mortgage. So there's 4 things that come out that go to the lender. But this reserve replacement is basically a wash. So we know that they have taken this amount out. And then what we do is at the end of the quarter, we're going to submit receipts that add up to that. So it's right at 5,000. It's 4,999 if you add those up. So what we're going to do in April is we will submit to the bank receipts that total $5,000. Every lender is different. So when we close on the loan, we ask them, what do you allow for the reserve replacement? And typically it's going to be blinds. It'll be your HVAC. It'll be your hot water heater. Some of them allow appliances. So you just have to find out, like, what do they allow? So when we're doing it, what have we done in the last 3 months that we can submit to the lender to get reimbursed? So this is money that was taken out. We get reimbursed for that, and it goes back into our syndication account. So we're going to, at the end of the year, that's a wash where we have submitted for everything. It's really good that we have this because I don't submit this information. The property management does. So if in April, I don't see a number in there, I'm going to ask them, hey, did we do the reserve replacement? That way I know whether it's been done or not. Sometimes on some properties, maybe someone on the asset management team is going to be submitting those. But it's a little bit tricky because you have to know, what does the lender want? What are they going to accept? And then you have to send the invoices and copies of the canceled check. So you do have to work with the property management to get that. But it's really important to make sure that you are getting that money back. It just helps with your cash flow. And then we have the debt service come out. And then the blue number, that is what is available. That's the cash flow. So that's what we're going to pay out to our investors. And then below that are just some notes that kind of help me as the asset manager. So I know that I have $79,000 to distribute. And then I want to know, how much did the property management send me? Because the way it works is they close out their books, and then we have an amount that we agree on that stays in their operating account. So it might be 5,000, it might be 10,000, it might be 20,000, just depends. Each property management's different, but anything above that, they are to send to our syndication account. Tyler, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I do. Yeah. I just want everybody to take a second that's on the call and think about in your head, what would happen if I had a property that I could distribute $80,000 a quarter to my investors in the GP team? What are your thoughts on that? Like, good, bad, a lot, not enough? Like, how do you feel about $80,000 a quarter? I'm getting some head bobs. Okay.
Well, I know as an investor, I would be super happy about that. Cash flow is king. And right now, within the multifamily space, there are several properties that are not paying at all. They do not come ahead on the cash flow. And I really, everyone has to take responsibility in that, but I really do think that you have to actively asset manage. It's not a passive role. It is working every week with your property management company. It's looking at the numbers and really knowing what you're looking at. Because you can get the reports, and if you don't understand how to read them, then it's really a disservice to you and to your investors. So that's one of the reasons why we teach the asset management classes. We want you to be able to look at those and understand what you're looking at it and why is it significant. But that's why we added these extra numbers beneath it. So we're going to distribute $79,000 for the quarter. And how much money did we actually receive from the property management? So we received 74. So that's like, I don't have to come up with that money. That is money that they actually sent us, but we're off 5,000 because it's 79 is what I should be sending them, actually 79.7. So why am I off? Why didn't they send me all of the money? And that is where we look at the funds that were spent on CapEx that were paid out of the operating account. So what that means is if you kind of let's step back and kind of look at it from an overarching view. So the property management has an operating account. They receive all of the rent. So the rent gets paid into this one account. And then they pay the bills that it's required to run the property, the electric, the utilities, the debt service, the insurance, the property taxes. So all that's paid. But sometimes they pay for CapEx out of their operations account, rather than calling me up and saying, hey, we need to do this CapEx. Will you send us money? They just pay for it out of the operating account. And so you can see here that they paid $19,000 out of the operating account. So I feel very comfortable sending the 79.7, because if I add what they sent me and then what we spent on CapEx, it's above the 79. Now keep in mind, they only send me money that's above what we've agreed that they're going to keep. So I already know how much money they're keeping because they have to keep a balance in their account. That's just, we never go below that. And if we do, then they let me know, hey, we're running short on money. This particular property, we don't do that very often. And especially in our 5th year. Most of the time it's in the 1st year, because when we bought a property that very 1st year, that's when we're doing most of the CapEx. Because we have bought this property and we have said to our investors, we are going to do this, this, and this to the property to bring the value up, to help us to get to market rent. And so we'll do that in the 1st year. Typically, the lender withholds a portion of our proceeds and gives us a list. We need to do these certain things. And they look at what our business plan is. And so they withhold some of that money. And then as we complete those things, then they release funds. So it's a lot of tracking, especially in the 1st year. But once you get through that 1st year, usually it's pretty smooth. Sometimes into the 2nd year, we'll have some. And then if your plan is, for example, we're going to turn X number of units in the first 3 years, that's where we keep track of, because you can see the number of units turned, the number of units renovated, and then the 5-star reviews. We track that as well because we want to know how much are we spending? Have we renovated a unit or have we just turned a unit? The difference of that is a turn, meaning that someone has lived there. When they move out, the unit has already been upgraded, and all we're going to do is we're going to touch up the paint. We're going to maybe replace carpet in a bedroom if it's bad. So we do the things that just kind of bring it up to standard that we have for the property. A renovation, that's where we're going to completely renovate the unit. So that means new appliances, new flooring, new lighting, new paint. And so obviously a turned unit is going to be less expensive than a renovated unit. But we typically get higher rent on a newly renovated unit. In fact, we have not this property, but another property. We don't renovate them unless they come in and they see a renovated and they see a classic. And if they say, I want a renovated, then we will renovate it because it is $300 more rent for a renovated unit. But guess what? Every month we have people that say, I want a renovated unit. So what was the last thing in the chat, Tyler? I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was Shelby asking about distributions to investors. Like, to answer the question, and Cindy can dive in a little bit deeper, most of your investments that you do, like your syndications, are a 70-30 split. So 70% goes to the LPs and 30% goes to the GP team. In addition to that, there's usually a pref, right? So the first 7% go to the LPs with no GP attachment at all. So it's really hard to be like, yeah, for sure, like every investment, it's this benchmark and this is what it looks like. And honestly, this is one of our smaller properties. So like the dollar amounts are a little bit smaller, which means our investor pool is also a little bit smaller. So it all kind of shakes out differently with every single one. So it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, just keeping in mind that it's usually 70-30 with a 7% pref.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And on this property, we tip the GPs, our 30% is typically paid in the third quarter, which what that means is we get paid in the third quarter and then we split the distribution in the fourth quarter. So they get 7%, we get the 3%, we've met our pref, and then we split with the investors after that. But a lot of properties are not meeting their pref at all. And a lot of them, they don't get paid. The GPs don't get paid until the fourth quarter and they never hit that split. But we actually have 3 properties that we actually hit the GP for the last 3 years. We've hit the GP and then split with the investors. Now we're getting ready to close on a property that we're doing it very different. So feel free to ask me in a year. We'll mark this on the calendar because this one we're doing a true waterfall because that's not a true waterfall. Even though they call it a waterfall, it's not a true waterfall. And what we're doing on this property that we're getting ready to close on next week is we're cash flowing day one. We won't pay distributions until the second quarter because we want to, be able to gather that money together and pay it out. But we are doing 90-10. So the investors will get 90% and we will get 10%. The GPs will get 10%. And that's day one. So we haven't done this before. So we're curious to see how we know what it looks like on paper, but I'm always like, I gotta make sure that it actually works that way. But so far, that's what it looks like. It's going to be very advantageous actually to our investors because instead of them getting a 70 or 75, most of their investment, they're going to get about a 78 and we're going to get a 12. The way that it works out is we as the GP are taking more of a risk because we're only going to get 10% and then we're going to get 12%. And it's just a risk that
10% than 22.
Yes, I'm sorry, 10% then 22 instead of getting the 75, 25 in the third quarter. But we're just this is a good property to do this on. And as the investors will see more of their money up front and we will receive more of it on the back end. But the investors are still getting just a skosh more than they normally would. The way this one's set up. So we'll talk about that in a year. I'll let you know what I think of the true waterfall because right now I have no opinion of it either way. It looks good on paper. That's what I have to say.
Well, we do have an opinion of it because it is very attractive to our investors.
Yes.
And that's a huge goal for us is to provide where we can say, hey, we're going to distribute $80,000 this quarter. We love being able to do that. So,
Yeah. So that's where we are today. We're getting ready. Have to calculate what the distributions are going to be, and then we send it. Kind of how the step of how it goes is we send it out to the GPs and we say, this is, what we have calculated, and they get a copy of this scorecard. We do send it in PDF so no one can change it. It's definitely, no one has editing abilities because we have to be able to go back and look at it and make sure that it's what we, said it was. So then we send it to the GPs and say, this is what we've calculated. Our distributions will be for the going out, for this quarter. We're doing it in 3 payments because this one we pay monthly. This is how much we need to pay each month. And, then they just come back, and if there's any questions, we discuss those. If we need to jump on a call, we will. Typically, when we say, hey, we're paying out money, they're just like, sounds good. And then we just get it set up in the portal, and the investors get notified. You're going to be receiving a distribution, and then the distribution goes out. If they have an ACH, it just takes maybe a couple of days. If they're getting a manual check, then it takes about a week. So, but they will get a notification. They have to go into their portal to look at it. But that's kind of the steps of it. We used to write checks, believe it or not, back in the good old days, I guess. We had ACHs, and then if they got a check, we had to manually write them. In fact, it was on this property. I would actually fill out, like I had a card that was like a thank you card, actually, that I sent them, thanking them for their investment, and I included a check that said, here's your money. But we've gotten a little bit more technological with this, and so it just, the portal will send out a check. But I kind of miss those days. Like, there was a couple investors I'd write a little note to, if I knew what was going on in their lives or something, but a little bit more personal, but not that anymore, I guess. But any questions on distributions?
now that we've held you hostage for 40 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. All right. 10 minutes over. That's what happens when I have my glasses on. Those numbers are way too little for me to see. So, well, thank you all so much. Hopefully this is good. And we want you to send out distributions. So let us know how we can help. And remember, first Monday of every month, we're going to be sending out a notice this week. So you guys heard it here first. So we'll